they think that they're winning if they support the party who are going to dilute their workers' rights. They'll support those guys for fear that if they vote for the other guys or let the other guys in, that they might bump into a trans woman in a public toilet. Public toilets that don't even exist anymore. It's like, oh, I better not let Labour in, or I might bump into a person that I'm statistically unlikely to bump into. And it's a person who I have no discernible way of telling if she was female by birth unless I follow her into the cubicle and personally examine her genitals in a fantasy venue that doesn't exist. And whenever I say this stuff, they're always like, oh, well, what about a gym changing room? It's like, oh, do you go to a gym, do you? No. It's like, what are you so worried about? Why are you so terrified? It's like, oh, what if I bump into an axe murderer in a Starbucks in Narnia? What if the Easter Bunny fucks my wife and puts it on the internet? Like, I mean, where does this stop? Conservative MPs clutching their pearls over women's safety is just ridiculous. Like, don't start now, lads. You haven't had the practice. Because I can tell you now, right, like, if I was a relatively attractive 25-year-old woman working in Parliament, if that was me, I think I would understand that the bigger threat to my vagina than a trans woman in a cubicle by a pretty huge margin is probably one of the 50 MPs who are being investigated or who have been suspended for actual sex crimes. It's like, oh, well, what if women were at risk from trans people? We're like, well, yeah, okay, look, that is a valid concern, maybe, you know? There might be a discussion to be had about that, Hugo. There could be, but it might mean more coming from someone who isn't doing the helicopter to his terrified secretary while making it. Can you put your dick away?
It's not a suggestion of you have to wait and be patient. It's a suggestion of, is the policies that Labour put forward going to be strong enough? Because we haven't seen manifesto.
Yeah.
So,
the way you said it sounded like an Italian waiter. Like, we haven't seen manifesto.
Manifesto.
Where's that Manny guy?
First up to the Daily Express this morning. Has the PM opened door to an amazing Boris comeback? I don't think I've ever read a headline where the editor is kind of ejaculating in print before, but this is...
Oh my God! Have you heard? Don't shout it. Don't shout. Just whisper it. It's a possibility that Rishi Sunak is going to bring back Boris. Oh my God! I don't know if it's obvious to you, but I am propelling tadpoles into the threads of my boxers.
Meanwhile, the unparalleled investigative reporters of The Sun are going with Rashford's 12-hour tequila party before calling in sick. Oh my God! I don't care. No, I mean I'm being facetious, guys. That really is that's top-notch journalism right there. I'm sure the Pulitzer Prize is on its way now.
In America too, they are also gearing up for what exactly? Another ridiculous display of haphazard coups and vote count disruptions. And I mean, think back to the last two elections over there, right? 2016 and 2020. In 2016, you had Donald Trump telling Hillary Clinton he was going to appoint a special prosecutor in the Justice Department to look into her emails and finances. Crooked Hillary. Do you remember that? He's like, I'm going to get elected and I'm going to appoint a special prosecutor to look into your situation. Like, he said that. Now, a few years later, he's got the gall to stand up there and go, like, talking about weaponization of the Justice Department. So yeah, 2016, that was. Then you had the 2021, where his QAnon disciples treated the Capitol building like they were drunk 7-year-olds at the adventure playground, right? And now it's 2024. It's the third one in a row, right? The third terrible election over there. And I don't want to say it's definitely going to be a murderous, dictatory collapse of democracy, you know, with probable bloodshed. Probably there's going to be political dissidents and journalists and activists thrown in jail from where it's headed, you know, maybe even before, I don't know. I don't know how much longer the creaking mess of democracy that America is can last. It may not even make it to the election. I still wake up every day amazed that the spark hasn't happened yet, you know, to explode America into the civil war that it so desperately, obviously wants to descend into. But yeah, like, I want to say it's definitely gonna be awful, but, you know, like I say, this is the third one, and sequels are usually shitter than the original, and then the third one, if we're talking about a trilogy, the third one is always, like, without question, the worst every single time. So how are you going to watch Batman Forever and Beverly Hills Cop 3 and tell me this election is going to be a step up? It's just... Like, are you guys familiar with the concept of dead naming, right? Where you refer to a trans person by their old name, their former identity, as it were. Well, Biden dead names world leaders. He refers to, like, the Egyptian president or prime minister as whoever was in power like 25 years ago who has since died. Like, he literally dead names people. He's done it with Egypt, he's done it with France. Like, Joe Biden is like the geopolitical equivalent of your great-grandfather at the barbecue who thinks his great-grandniece is his dead first wife, you know? Goes and cuddles her, gets a bit too handsy. Somebody rushes over, like, no, Dad, no, this is not Barbara. It's not. This is Taylor, your grandniece. You gotta stop.
Good morning, my neighbors!
Finally to The Guardian. Badenoch and Gove on Tory group evil plotters. This is a story that Kemi Badenoch, after saying on the Sunday morning breakfast shows, look, we've all got to rein it in, we've got to unite, we've got to come together, stop the plotting. Now it turns out she's on a WhatsApp group with a bunch of other Tory MPs, and the name of the WhatsApp group is Evil Plotters. The best thing about it was that as this story broke last night, like, all of the reactions in the Twitter sphere, if you like, they were like, oh, well, I guess you lefties don't get irony. I think it's pretty obvious it's a joke. Like, they're making jokes out of the fact that there was, like, plotters and stuff, which would be fine if the WhatsApp group was set up since Sunday, because that's when all that stuff happened. But this WhatsApp group has existed for months. Oh, I guess you lefties don't get irony, do you? I am a fan of irony, and I know that there are some people out there who find it a little bit complex to understand that something means the opposite of what it appears to, or that it's self-referential in some way. But I'm going to say that 99.9% of time, I am able to decipher and appreciate the irony. However, I do confess, sometimes I do struggle with the complexities when the irony is like this, and it's like time-traveling, self-referential, meta levels deep irony. I mean, to believe that this was irony, you'd have to be like, okay, so they literally said to themselves, let's call ourselves evil plotters, because then in the future, when we're not plotting, but we inexplicably get accused of plotting, then we'll have a months-old joke to look back on and laugh at. And I have to say, I'm impressed by that. That is, you know, I'm a big fan of, like, in-jokes, running jokes, memes, and so on. And if that is truly what happened here, then just